Casey Neistat called AI slop an endless dribble of computer-generated nonsense that no one cares about. And if you're not familiar with what AI slop is, it's low-effort, frictionless, AI-generated content that's flooding all sorts of platforms and possibly drowning out human creativity, authentic human creativity. And seeing that, Hamish and I felt pretty strongly that we should mention this podcast is not AI slop. It's full of errors, it's full of human behaviors, but it's not generated by artificial intelligence. And we frequently talk about artificial intelligence, Hamish and I, what is ethical and acceptable use and what is not. And I feel like given how much AI slop we're seeing, it's worth just reminding folks that this podcast is produced by humans. And when we make a mistake, please give us some room for those errors, and for sure call us out on it, and we will address it, because we're humans and humans do make mistakes. But we're definitely not these AI-generated gorgeous people that are expressing things and are very fake and just painful. I mean, I don't know. How do you feel about it, Hamish?
The AI is not going to replicate your voice today, as you've got a cold going on. So definitely not.
I have a cold going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't even think of this before we jumped into the pod, but I believe it's CoffeeZilla. Have you heard of him?
No.
It's kind of like investigative guy. There was a scam, and the scammers created, it had to have been like thousands of AI videos specifically targeting different demographics and different types of people. And because it's so low effort and so frictionless, they were able to create this video. And I think the sell was, it was like debt relief loans, consolidation loans, but it was sold as like a no extra cost to you type of thing. Anyway, it was just scores of AI videos designed to target and hit every single person, which great use of it for the specific goal, but not exactly ethical or correct.
It's just a tsunami. Yes, I have a cold. I'm about 75% recovered, and my brain's still a little fuzzy, but I feel like I should reiterate that. But no, there's a tsunami of AI slop now, and I whenever I find myself clicking on it and then realize that it's AI, I just feel gross. I just can't wait to click away from it. I feel like I'm being so manipulated for my attention, and the attention's going to somebody who's put in so little effort, and it just makes me feel sad.
Yeah, it's not fun being duped, and I think part of that for me is kind of the feeling that I get if I watch something and then it's like, oh dang, that was, and I'll go back and it was so obvious after the fact. Or recently I did see a pretty funny one where it was like, your chiropractor probably doesn't do this, was the on-screen caption, and then they just picked up the person and threw him through the wall. It was like one of those you just didn't expect, and it's AI, so
there's
it all
so
worked
much,
really well. But
there's so much fake cat videos, fake everything.
Oh, yeah.
And in real estate, where it really bugs me is when there's so much AI imagery and it's so good, and then you go and look at the house and it's a complete lie, right? Mm-hmm. And as if to make up for that lie, they've taken those images that they produced, they've printed them in color, and they've tacked them to the wall to show you what the room could look like if it was AI. And it's just, and the house in this particular case was so decrepit and so full of mold that it really angered me. And so beyond unethical, and no disclosure from the agent about the structural issues and the mold that's visible and obvious, of which they are actually legally required to disclose when they know there's an adverse material defect. All agents are required to disclose that. And so I don't know, it's continuing to evolve, this space. And I think that we should talk about our ethics and where we draw the line. Like, we may use some AI to clean up an image, or if we absolutely need a little piece of B-roll. Look, we produce a lot of content, and almost all of it is authentic, human-created content. But there are some places where it makes sense to use AI. If an image needs a little cleaning up, if there's a little extension to a piece of B-roll we need, it may make sense to use AI, but there are ethical limits to what is acceptable and what is not. And we've had a client not that long ago, and this is before there was this level of AI built into Photoshop, and this client asked me to change the windows in the garage. Like there were windows in the garage door, and the bottom layer of windows did not match the top layers. And he said that he's going to replace them. And I said, okay, if you promise me you're going to replace them, then I will go ahead and copy. I will clone those good-looking windows to the lower level. And I did it manually. This was time-consuming, but it looked great after that. And it was only because he agreed that he would do that.
Yeah, there was. Okay, two things. Like on the virtual staging side of AI, I was watching some like YouTube how-to tutorials of it, and it's almost, maybe it's like a trope now, but some things with AI like promises to be faster and more efficient. And I was watching this tutorial, and the guy ended up doing, I think, that like trope where, yeah, it seems like it's going to be faster and more efficient, but it's AI, so it kind of screws up in like really annoying ways. And so he was like, yeah, I've got my room, I've got my shot, and I'm going to have it virtually stage it. And then the staging comes in, and he's like, okay, now that we have it, we can see that AI doesn't really understand this space, and there's like chairs just facing walls and like furniture that doesn't make any sense, and like no real layout to things. So then the rest of the video is him just like iterations and correcting it. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like if I just used a standard, the virtual staging program, it'd be a bit faster at this point and probably a bit cheaper. You draw in your perspective lines, and then the staging software works as that goes. But yeah, it was pretty funny, and I forgot the other one. But
well, there's a listing right now. It's pretty high end. We'll get there. Let me just hit this last point, and that is there's a listing right now that's making the rounds. And it's bare land, supposedly with a permitted structure that could be built on it. And so they're selling the land plus the building plans. And they're using a lot of AI videography to show what the house would look like. And I feel like, given all of the nuance to construction, particularly in Boulder, the odds of it looking like this AI-generated rendering that's in 3D is extremely low. And because of the risks you face, and I'll talk about it with this particular house, this house was built on a mountain, and the owner, the story goes, the reason we have a tall crawl space is because as they were dynamiting and digging out the crawl space, and they were hoping to build a basement, and it just got so expensive because of all the rock that they abandoned it, and I ended up with a tall crawl space. But this house was designed originally with a full basement. And boy, if I bought this land thinking I could build a full basement, and then 3 years down the road or 2 years down the road, turns out I can't, I would feel a little annoyed with the seller and the listing agent who represented them. I would be looking at the contract, and even though the contract strongly protects sellers and buyers in various ways, and there's always that maxim of caveat emptor, if I was well-heeled enough and angered enough, I still might make your life miserable by going to litigation over it to get something back. Some people use the legal system strategically that way, and the wealthier you are, the more likely you have an attorney on staff, to do that. Right? Yeah. So it's just something to think about when you ask an agent to use AI to market. And yes, all listings and sales in some ways are about marketing the possibility. You're selling the vision, you're selling the dream. But you need to be careful, particularly the higher up you go in price range, because your legal risk is going to continue to increase as you go higher and higher in price and continue to sell things that don't actually exist today. Okay, so what are we doing here? Welcome to the House Einstein podcast. This is the first House Einstein podcast of the year. We're a little delayed. I was traveling and now I have a cold, but here we are. We have to podcast 103. If you are new to the pod, I'm Osman, your host, with Hamish also co-hosting, and we are here to entertain you. This podcast is sponsored by the House Einstein brokerage, whose mission is to help you make a smarter real estate decision, but the podcast is entertainment. And we say that because our attorneys make us. And please don't make any major decisions or even minor decisions relative to your real estate purchases and sales based on anything you hear in this podcast. If you are a client or would consider becoming a client, just pick up the phone and call us. You can visit our website at houseeinstein.com. You'll see my phone number on the website. just pick up the phone, give me a call. It's, once again, the best way to reach me. And we're more than happy to advise you on your specific real estate situation. And if you're not even in our market, we know agents all over the country and would be more than happy to connect you with an agent that we feel actually could represent your needs. And that won't come from a 5-minute phone call. We're going to have like a half-hour discussion talking about what you're trying to achieve, and then we're going to spend a lot of time interviewing and researching and interviewing agents to make sure it's the right fit before we set you up with a referral. We put a lot of effort into referrals. I just want to mention that so that you understand it. Okay, so this pod, let me go. Should I walk through the table of contents, Hamish, or did you want to jump in with something?
I think you've got it. I will also add the Happy New Year and just give your voice a break. I think, it's... Thank you for making it here today on the podcast.
Yeah. You thought I was kidding when I told you I was sick.
No, I knew you were.
I was like, we're delaying the podcast. We're not recording on Wednesday. And you're like, Friday? I'm like, maybe. I don't know. I remember when I was when I used to do choirs and choruses in middle school and high school. One day the choir director told us, that if you're sick, you're sick. Enjoy the difference in the sound of your voice. And he kind of pointed at all that phlegm in your face, and your sinuses actually resonates and changes the timbre of your voice. And I was like, that's such a positive way to look at the fact you're sick, and in a choir situation, which is probably making everyone else sick too. But we're not in-person podcasting. We are remote, and the only person that could potentially infect is my wife, Leah, and I think she actually may have given this to me. Don't tell her I told you that. I don't think she listens to the pod anyway, so... Well, yeah,
she
so this
does
is day 3. Yeah, if you do, Leah, I'm not blaming you, but the odds of you giving it to me are pretty good. But the timing is great because we've got some travel coming up on some weekend travel. I'm going to go see my parents, and I'd much rather have this now than next weekend when I'm visiting them. They're in their 80s, and I would cancel the trip if I felt like this on Friday next week. All right, so let's talk about the table of contents. We're going to have a little bit of a shorter pod, mostly to give my voice a break, but also because Hamish has got some showings that he's covering for me and needs to get out the door. And our table of contents today, we're going to cover our closing table topic. This is our core topic, is our predictions for the housing market next year, our crystal ball, if you will.
Very serious, very real predictions.
Very well, and hopefully based on real data that you can put your... put
There's
some belief into.
It? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's not just how I feel about the market. And then we're going to talk about some news items in the news segment. We're not going to talk about closings that have occurred. That's mostly that we're cutting out some normal segments, and that's just because of the need to have a shorter pod today. And then we're going to hit our carve-outs. So pretty short podcast. Hopefully it's one you find entertaining and educational.
Did you hit all the news?
I didn't walk you through the news items. Should I do that?
Yeah, maybe, just in case we tempt somebody to stay through it. Yeah.
All right, I'm just going to say it's so tempting to talk about what's happening in the world, right? With what's happened with Venezuela. God, that was just this past weekend. What's happening today and for the last 2 weeks in Iran. The Minnesota shootings with ICE. I mean, there's so much happening so fast, and I feel like it's a little dishonest to not acknowledge these things, and also to, in some ways, be in our lane, right? Like, I definitely have opinions about all of these things, and I also don't feel like it should be stuff that we bring into our podcast, because that's not what this podcast is about. But it's really hard to pretend like it's not a deal.
Yeah.
And
it's like we're just going to go on like everything's hunky-dory, All this is going on.
If you want to say something, Hamish, about these things, you could say something about these things. And our goal is not to get every single client. And we work with every client, even if we don't agree politically, right? As long as they're respectful, I'm more than happy to represent extreme conservatives, extreme liberals. If they're kind and respectful, your politics, your faith, the color of your skin is not what how deep your pockets are not how we choose our clients. In fact, I often have people that are surprised that we work with entry-level buyers. All the time we work with entry-level buyers. It's not just the high end, but these topics are super alienating and divisive, and I just feel like it's better to not jump out of our lane.
I've got nothing else to say. Yeah.
If you really want to know what I think about these things, let's grab a cup of coffee. And I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. And whenever I've met with people face to face about even very divisive things, we usually realize that 95% of the stuff we agree on. It's like this 5% outlier.
As is typically the case. But yeah, sure enough, we're not going to be spouting our super controversial opinions on the House Einstein podcast, especially considering the House Einstein brokerage is our sponsor.
That's right.
We wouldn't want to lose that sponsorship.
So we're going to talk about Trump just buying $200 billion in collateralized mortgage obligations to drop residential mortgage rates, and also forbidding institutional investors from acquiring residential property going forward. That's I don't even know what he acts like he's a king, so I have no idea what actual rules, what's the mechanism for his proclamations. But the market basically reacts as if it's like a decree from the monarch and it's happening. So I assume he can order the federal government to buy $200 billion in CMOs. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the impact on the market. And then in the news, we're going to talk about our mountain lion attacks. There have been attacks very close to Boulder and mountain lions that have been euthanized. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about fire risk. Thank God it's finally snowing and the fire risk is coming down, because December has turned into another fire season for the Front Range. And this year was particularly bad, but not as bad, of course, as the Marshall Fire.
Yeah.
Hamish, you're going to talk about I-270 corridor improvements, which I'm
can't wait.
All about.
Make sure you stay to the end,
Okay. We're going to talk about CU's student housing pipeline, which there's thousands of units that are expected to be constructed in the coming years, and what the impact could be to the Boulder housing market. And then we're going to wrap up with carve-outs. I'm going to talk about London and Dublin and some videography. And Hamish, I think you're talking about some videography topics. You said you might switch it up at the end, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think so. Once again, stay to the end to find out. And I think this is going to be mostly kind of a news forward podcast. So without further ado, I guess as well, I'm Hamish. I work very closely with Osman and other agents on the team. I'm a licensed agent. I work on the behind the curtain, so to speak, most of the time with these agents, and help them with the contracts, showings, marketing, you name it. I'm always around. So if you can't get a hold of Osman, and you can find me, reach out. I'll be around. And Happy New Year.
All right. Happy New Year. This podcast is sponsored by House Einstein. We serve buyers and sellers in Colorado, focusing on Boulder, Denver, and several mountain resort towns, including Breckenridge and Winter Park. Our mission is simple: help you make a smarter real estate decision. You can learn more at houseeinstein.com or our YouTube channel, where you'll find videos on neighborhoods, specific listings, and much, much more. So let's get into the closing table. So apparently the spreads have already started coming down just on the pronouncement that Trump is buying all these CMOs, is going to cause the federal government to buy through Fannie and Freddy to buy all these CMOs. I'm glad to see the support for the market. We've had 2 years that have been down, maybe 3 years of down, actually. So we will see what happens. But the reason this is the closing table topic is I've been kind of shocked to see a lot of my colleagues come out with their own blogs and newsletters about what to predict for next year. And I don't read their content, but I will tell you that even with my financial analysis background, I've worked for institutional investors, a large family office. I've worked on Wall Street, paid to do analysis. I still don't feel hyper confident in making forecasts, because every time you make a forecast, inevitably it feels like it's wrong. But we can tell you what we think will happen. But when I see these colleagues do it, I'm always like, okay, like on what basis are you making these proclamations? And I forwarded you a newsletter, Hamish, from one of them. And I don't want to name this person, but he doesn't have like an institutional investment background, and I don't even know why he's sending me his newsletter. Right? Like I did not opt into this newsletter, but he's included me on it.
And which, speaking of litigation, that is something that is a risk, but here nor there. Well,
I will say that if you are going to have a newsletter, you should at least allow people to opt in, right? Like you should actually generally get permission before you start. I'm looking for
at least now. It's not AI slop, right?
I think I deleted it, but it was full of all this like crazy predictions with no basis. And I realized, okay, let's go through the data and then talk about what we expect to happen this year. And so before this podcast began, Hamish and I went through an analysis. And one of the things I want to mention is that a competent agent should be able to do this in real time for you. And the analysis on the broader market is less important than the analysis that's specific to your unique situation. And you could do this analysis by looking at the price range and locations that matter to you and the property types that matter to you, and then get a sense of the depth of market. How many sales occur in a 3 or 6 or 12-month period that actually match the criteria of what you're hunting for? And if you're selling your home, how many homes like this sold in the last year? And what sort of price range? On the basis of what are they coming up with a pricing analysis? This is particularly true the higher up you go in price. Like the depth of market is so solid at the entry level that there's lots of comps and you can get a much better idea of valuation. But the higher up you go, the more valuing these homes start to sound like make-believe and wishful thinking. And so a prudent and intelligent buyer is going to look for the comp that justifies this acquisition, but it just seems to never stop people from, Hail Marys and shooting for the fences and wishful thinking when they price their houses. But I thought it would be helpful to not just talk out of the side of my mouth, but actually give you the data. So I think I'll just share screen, Hamish, and
wait. We've kind of seen the data, and I know this is a mild departure from our what we have planned. But before we do that, do you want to, off the seat of your, come up with just some fun predictions?
Predictions?
Yeah, now, like I could give you a 30-second, like I'm just going to imagine the best case scenario, right?
You're so much more fun as a human being than I am. Like the idea of a fun prediction is very hard for me to get my head around.
You were born and raised in New York. It kind of explains it,
Oh, you're going to attack New York on the basis of that? I don't even know what that means.
I like East Coast versus West Coast. I prefer East Coast. It's like they're generally, and I'm maybe talking myself into a corner here, but I think they're like more gruff, but generally more kind. Like on the nose, they're a little bit more rude, perhaps. But
okay, so just like with the housing market, Hamish, I will say that the East Coast idea is not really an identity because there's so much nuance. New York City has such a different vibe than where I grew up in upstate New York and rural upstate New York. And even within the city, there's a different vibe in Queens versus the Upper West Side. And within Queens, there's like 100 different neighborhoods, all with their own vibes. And when I lived in Brooklyn, it was like a completely different world than where I worked in Midtown. And then you go up the Eastern Seaboard. You're like, when I lived on Nantucket, the character of the Nantucketers is completely different than the character of the Bostonians when I lived in Boston. At least my perceptions of that. So I feel like there's a parallel. Maybe it's a bit of a stretch, but the housing market's like that too. And so this generalization about the East Coast, West Coast is for rap stars that want to have like some sort of rivalry.
I've never been to New York, right?
You've never been to New York?
No, Long Island is, only place I've
You've been to Long Island. You've never been to New York City. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. Well, or upstate or any of that. But you're probably the third person I know from upstate. And granted, that stereotype's starting to form pretty solid.
Upstate New York.
From upstate, yeah.
I had a roommate from Vermont in college, and upstate New York is like the Vermont of New York State. It's super chill and very safe and very pretty, and also conservative.
Yeah. Sorry for detracting, as you were.
Yeah.
Do we want to do a quick fun prediction or seat of the pants, or do we want to just jump into the data?
I think we're going to get into that by price range, Hamish. That was what my intent was, is that we'll talk about predictions at each price point. So one of the things your agent should be able to do is pull up something called InfoSparks. This is part of the MLS, and whether you're a Denver agent or a Boulder agent, the InfoSparks software runs in the background, and it draws directly from the MLS, and you can specify the city of Boulder or Boulder County or Denver or Broomfield or any community you want where the MLS serves that community. That's the key, right? Like you can't pull down accurate and useful information about the Aspen market because this is not the Aspen MLS. And so if you've got any data in here, it's very likely to be inaccurate. So there are limitations that you need to consider. But we went ahead and defined a couple of price ranges, and you can see that in the chart. We said, okay, let's look at the city of Boulder only, and we'll call the entry level $750,000 to $1 million. Because quite honestly, there hasn't been a single family house under $750,000 worth buying. Now there's lots of condos and townhomes that are now going to get pulled out of this data set, Hamish. And one of the things we did is our data is both attached and detached. If I had time to do this all over again, I would just do detached, but we did both. So this is houses and condos, $750,000 to $1 million. And then we did the next price range we called the mid-range, $1 million to $2 million. And remember, this is the city of Boulder. I understand that for most markets, $1 million to $2 million is not what's considered the mid-range. The luxury range, we called it $2 million to $4 million. And the ultra luxury segment, we called it $4 million and up. And there's some inaccuracy again at the entry level because we did not distinguish between attached and detached. So take that with a grain of salt when we're talking about this data. And what we did was we looked at sales by month, sales volume by month, and we looked at homes for sale by month. And we dumped it into a spreadsheet. And we came up with just a quick heuristic, which is based on I got to share the
right now?
Yep, yeah, okay. I got to share the screen. Hang on, let's go to this.
I agree with sharing the window though versus the screen for the pod. That portrait it worked for me on my full screen over here, but yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully this shares. Does this look okay?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, I'm zooming way in, so it's huge on my screen.
It's fantastic on mine.
Great. Okay, so we dumped all of the sales from the last 5 years by month, closings, into a spreadsheet in those price ranges, and then we did inventory by month. These are inventory of the homes that you could buy, also by price range, and then in the analysis, we just did a quick ratio, and that's the total number of closings in the last 12 months compared to the average inventory per month, to give you kind of a sense of what the demand is in these price ranges. And then we also did we looked at 2024 and 2025. So this is data ending December. It's a 12-month period, so it's full year. And you can see how much more. So 4.7 is the ratio at the entry level that we defined. The mid-range was 3.2. The luxury end, 1.4. That's the $2 to $4 million range. And the $4 million up is 0.6, which is really low. And when you look at the difference by year, let's see if there's been any change really. I mean, slight uptick, okay, in the ultra luxury segment. And meanwhile, agents are all over social media talking about how the ultra luxury segment is really waking up and super active. And I see this in like the Wall Street Journal and other periodicals, Bloomberg, talking about the ultra luxury segment is the new hot thing. But I'm here to tell you it's not hot. It's dead quiet and slow. And it had a minuscule uptick in activity last year compared to the preceding year. And so if you are in this ultra luxury segment, buyer or seller, your strategy should reflect a stagnant market, a market where you as a buyer have tremendous leverage and selection, and you as a seller better be really competitive. You better have updated this house or property. You better have a really concrete strategy for marketing it to the right buyer. And of course, you better be priced right. That's the last piece, but it's really important because to get past that filter of that buyer, they don't make a decision first on price. They go and see it, make sure it's what they really want. They need that emotional pull. And then before they write the offer, they're like, well, let's get our head around valuation. And at the ultra luxury segment, the negotiated discounts are also much higher. So you need to plan for that. But I wanted to illustrate this because we're so inundated with luxury and ultra luxury marketing, but all of the action is at the entry and mid-level. And the entry level saw a big uptick in activity from 3.99 or 4 to 4.66. The ratio had a substantial increase. I guess we could actually talk about what the percentage increase is.
Yeah. In
real time, we're talking about a 17% increase in activity. I think that's significant. And then the mid-range, 15% lower. The luxury segment, 12% lower activity. or I would call it demand, and the ultra luxury segment went up by 2%. And I think this is a good, useful rule of thumb. Like, this is not the perfect ratio. This is not looking at every particular neighborhood. This is just we're just going to slice up the market in these 4 categories really broadly and give you a sense of what really happened last year and how it compared to the preceding year. And also you can beat this out, Hamish, call bullshit on all the marketing that we keep seeing at the ultra luxury end and the luxury end. And one of the things that Hamish and I were talking about before this podcast is whether we would even want to take an ultra luxury listing, or even, here's the better question. Why would you take an ultra luxury listing when you know
what's the motivation?
When you know your odds of selling it are so low? And the answer is not that you expect to sell it. The answer is you're going to use it to sell yourself. And when you see this marketing at the luxury and ultra luxury end of the market, I want you to keep that in mind, that these agents are not actually selling the house. They are actually using this to sell themselves to you. And the house is the backstory and the backdrop and the sexy imagery to convince you to use them as an agent. And this is what I mean by our mission is to help you be smarter about real estate. And part of that is also being smarter about marketing. And the data does not lie. The ultra luxury segment is extremely stagnant. It's heavily slated to the buy side. It's a buyer's market. The entry level, it's the opposite story. It's harder for buyers at the entry level last year compared to the previous year, and now with Trump's pronouncement of $200 billion in CMOs being bought by Fannie and Freddy, that's going to drive down rates, and the most rate sensitive buyers are at the entry and mid level of the market. So my prediction is that the entry and mid-level of the market is going to see a lot of activity this year with the government. I mean, Trump's budget for the military, he's talking about a 50% increase in military spending this year, which is unreal. And it's war level spending, which I hope is not a prediction for war, but it's also highly inflationary when the government starts spending money like that. And so real estate is a natural inflation hedge. Lower rates at the same time we're seeing higher inflation is likely going to cause the entry and mid-level to perk up even more. The luxury and ultra luxury segment, I don't think are going to see as much activity, but the luxury segment more so than the ultra luxury segment. The ultra luxury segment, you're going to see agents celebrate their wins, which is great when they have them. Just keep it with a grain of salt that hopefully they represented the buy side really well, because there's a lot of choices in the market. So if you're an entry-level buyer, I think you're better off getting off the fence early this year, get into the market early. I don't think this is going to be a year where prices slide further down. And maybe even so at the mid-range, after a year of a slow and weakened market last year, I think this year's market's going to uptick too, because most of those mid-range buyers are also rate sensitive. But the luxury and ultra-luxury segment, I think it's really going to largely depend on how the stock market reacts, because those buyers are not usually cash buyers. They're usually moving assets from investments into real estate. And it's not usually their first home. It's usually their third, fourth, or fifth home. So
good point.
It's harder to predict what happens at the luxury. The ultra luxury end, I think it's going to, I don't think it's going to move at all. I think it's going to look exactly like this next year.
I think seeing a value of 0.01 correspond to 2% increase is crazy for ultra luxury. But the ratio is more of a function to begin with. So
I mean, let's just flip to the spreadsheet. I mean, look how many. Yeah. Let's look at all the months where you see $4 million and up listings sold. It's single digits, and then there are months where it's just 0. November had 5. There are some months where it's 5s and 4s, but most months it's low single digits. And then when you look at the inventory, hold on, let me just wrap this up. Look at the inventory at this range, right? You're looking at 39, 59 houses, 63 houses to choose from. 66 75. Houses. Look at 73 in June of this year, the peak of the market. There were 73 houses, and yet in a single month, you're seeing the same month of June, probably represents by July, 3 of those sold. So this is why I'm calling it, beep it out, Hamish, bullshit, because it's a dead market. And if so this is the question is, under what conditions would I want the listing? I would want the listing if the seller is willing to contribute meaningfully to the marketing costs and really understands how tough this market segment is, and that we need a compelling value proposition. And then finally, they're willing to price it right, and they know we're likely not going to sell it. Even with all of those things to be true, it's still not probably going to sell because of how weak that market segment is. And most sellers don't really want to hear that kind of bad news. I had one last year that I kind of regret being so candid with, because what he didn't tell him. So we basically came to the agreement that we're not going to list the house because I'd rather be friends than have a tainted relationship with this person.
Now, right?
They have now closed, and they took a substantial loss on the property. If I had known they were going to take that loss, I probably would have taken the listing. And so the other question is, all right, are you aware of how weak the market is, and are you prepared to take a loss, if not from what you paid for it, from at least your expectation of its value? Because it's a very, very weak market at the high end. So Hamish, now it's your turn for fun predictions.
Not yet. I'm going to grill you. The first question is, it's real estate's typically a pretty good inflationary hedge. The high end of the market is not very liquid at the moment. So if you're hedging against inflation, you're probably looking more towards like an entry to mid-level.
I think you're safer at the entry to mid-level.
Not financial advice, but
the depth of market is much, much greater. But I think that people that can afford the high end and the ultra luxury segment aren't really concerned with using real estate as an investment hedge. I think, or an inflation hedge. I think they would likely buy a synthetic product through their investment advisor, through their bank, that mirrors, that gives them that type of hedge against inflation, because real estate is not a passive investment. So if you're going to buy 10 entry level houses, you have a management problem. And I don't think most well-heeled buyers care about dealing with that management problem. So it's sort of a fictional issue. And then if you're buying at the ultra luxury end, I think really you should be looking at this as an opportunistic environment, because there's so much inventory and so little available. There's so much inventory and so little sales that you can negotiate extremely aggressively and let it go if the seller's not willing to capitulate. For every low ball that should be accepted or negotiable at the high end, there's probably, I mean, I guess the other way around. Like there's like a 10-to-1 ratio, right? Like you should be extremely aggressive as a buyer in the ultra luxury and luxury end of the market. And at the entry to mid-level, it's a different story. But I don't think you should be using either of these as inflation hedges as your primary investment motivation.
Like tactic. Yeah, okay. Well, my prediction, you've heard of vibe coding. I'm just going to tell you how I feel.
You're going to feel me your prediction? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Without ifs and buts or anything, and what I'm saying, I'm trying to contact the cloud here. I think regardless, really, of anything huge, the entry level is going to remain strong. And I want to jump into the news and understand this a little bit better, the $200 billion Trump thing. So separate to that, I think demand will be strong. If anything, I'm thinking that prices have mostly finished their slide downwards, and more of a slide than a drop, because, I mean, at least, and maybe I've got a bias, but where I am, I live in an entry-level market, in an entry-level home, and as far as I can tell, especially with comps from this year, I haven't lost that much value, if anything. So I think that for the entry-level market. I think the mid-market, I think that still might have a little bit of a slide to go. I think there's going to, of course, be a break even where there's like, once prices slide enough in the mid-level market, demand will start to creep up again. That's mine for that. And then high-end and ultra-luxury, I agree with you.
Well, high-end and ultra-luxury, it's a good opportunity to negotiate, but we could see prices drop 10% or more. I think that's a real possibility at the high-end or ultra-luxury segment of the market. Entry-level, zero drop. Mid-level, I don't know, Hamish. We saw some listings last year that came down like 200,000 or 300,000 from where they started. Yeah. So I feel like most of that drop's already happened. And so I would say 2 to 3% increase at the mid level, and I would say 5% increase at the entry level, 2 to 3% at the mid level, high end 5% lower, and ultra luxury 10 to 15% lower by the end of the year. There's just too much inventory. But keep in mind, those ultra luxury sellers are not motivated as often, right? They're well heeled financially. It's the distressed sellers that are going to cause those prices to drop. So it's the sale prices that you're going to see this in, not the listing prices, the actual ones that closed, where I think we're going to see a really, really big haircut.
Do you think boomers are going to save the city?
That Hamish is referring to something in that newsletter that was prognosticated by our colleague, who says boomers are going to save the cities by wanting to move in to urban areas and enjoy the cultural amenities of the urban areas. I mean, I don't know, Hamish. I don't think so. Most of the boomers I know have no interest in a downtown urban environment that they have to, step over homeless people and drug addicts.
Vertical living.
Living vertically on top of each other, and then dealing with the higher crime levels of the downtown areas. It's undeniable, right? It's just a fact, and you can hate me for speaking that truth, but it's the truth, right? The downtown areas.
With density. Yeah.
Well, it hasn't always been. It doesn't have to be that way. But it is that way in Colorado, with Denver and Boulder in particular. I'm just astounded at how much higher how unsafe I feel as a 6'2" brown man, right? Like with a muscular build. I'm like, I'm on edge looking for the person that's mentally ill coming at me with a stick or a knife, right? Like I'm watching constantly when I'm walking around downtown at night. It does not feel safe. So no, I don't think the boomers. Maybe that's what they meant
by like boomers are going to save. Maybe they're going to, fight crime and instead of a bat signal, it could be like a capital B. All right.
Let's stop beating up the newsletter. I don't want to embarrass this agent. I was shocked.
Recorded that if we want to cut it too.
No, you can leave it in there. I think it's fine. Okay. But the take-home message is the same, I think. So if you're a buyer at these price points, at every price point, you really need to understand the market relative to your specific situation. And there's a continuum. At the entry level, you have less negotiation leverage. You have to be more aggressive, and you have to be less selective in order to successfully find a home for you and your family. And then as you move up in price, that pressure starts to shift the other way. And at the ultra luxury end, you should be extremely selective, extremely aggressive negotiating. And if you're looking for an agent that understands that, you know where to find me. That's what should be happening. And if the agent is doing the opposite, if they're saying things like, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, you'll never see anything like this again. If they're applying psychological pressure to you to make a decision in a market segment that does not support you being aggressive, this agent does not represent your best interests, and you should fire them. It's really that simple.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Recorded for later. You might see it on Reels, listeners. Yep.
Maybe. All right. So let's move on to the news. We're skipping our usual segments. We're skipping the shameless self-promotion. We're skipping sold listings, notable sales because of my cold. And Hamish's need to get out of here pretty quick. So let's talk about the news and the mountain lion attacks, Hamish.
Yeah, let me open that up really quick. Someone lost their dog to a mountain lion. Not earlier this year, last year. And we talked about that. I guess this is almost like a continuation of the mountain lion activity in the area.
Well, I'm not sure this is the same area, and that might be my head cold, but I don't remember who lost their dog. But it happens quite frequently that people lose a pet to.
It was your old accountant.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I don't think you necessarily need to cut. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I don't think you need to cut it. It's fine. So yeah, I forgot that person in town lost their pet to a mountain lion, but it happens frequently in the mountains too. And moose are also problematic with dogs. They are very aggressive against dogs. So we live in a state that we're right up against wilderness, and excuse me, animals are going to do what they're going to do. But it's pretty rare to have mountain lion attacks. When my parents first visited, I thought it was adorable that my mom was so worried about mountain lions, and she said, you got to be really careful so you don't end up being food for the mountain lion. And I shared that with my siblings, and we just had such a chuckle about it because it seems so wrong, but it turns out she's right. Like, there is risk of mountain lion attack, and now whenever Leah goes running, I really I asked her to take pepper spray with her at a minimum because she's a small female, and especially a juvenile mountain lion might look at her as prey because it just doesn't know any better. So so this is it's part of living in the mountains in particular, is being prepared for wildlife. We've caught mountain lions repeatedly in our cameras around the house.
I have a bobcat B-roll that I found of your camera recently too.
Yeah,
just looking through. Yeah,
we've had bobcats, we've had foxes, we've had bear, we had multiple mountain lions. Of course, deer all the time. We have deer. We've had moose.
Wow, moose are huge. Yeah. Really sad, and mountain lions are ambush as well. So it's one of those things.
They're ambush predators.
Yeah.
So you don't see them. They see you. Yeah, they see you. Yep.
And that's, I guess, the kind of spooky side to it. I remember when I was in high school, we went up Chautauqua at like 10 o'clock at night, and we thought it would be fun to climb the whole thing. But as we got into the tree line and started shining our flashlights around, it could have been deer, but there were certainly things looking back at us, and we pretty quickly ran back down the trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the same thing happened to me hiking up Sanitas the first time in the dark, and I'm like, oh my God, there are a lot of green eye shine coming all around us. They were deer, it turned out, but it felt very uncomfortable to know you're being watched in the dark.
Yeah. So, I take away, I mean, so there was an attack. Somebody died, really sad, and I guess started the effort to euthanize some mountain lions in the area, and it sounds like the culprit may have been found and euthanized. There's DNA on the paws. I've got that link in the description, if you want to read up on it, but I think we're more kind of covering it just as like hey, we live the wildlife urban interface, it's called, right, Oz?
Yes, yeah. Wild land, not wildlife, wild land urban interface. The one thing, it's not just that we're covering it because it's interesting, it's also a fact of due diligence. It's something you should care about if you're buying a home in the mountains. And even if you're not in the mountains, like that attack where the person lost their dog was right in town. So
Dakota Ridge,
it's extremely rare. But if you are going to live in the mountains, you should be talking to your agent should bring this up, particularly if you have kids or pets, that we live in a place that there are mountain lions and you have to adjust your lifestyle. Like, we had our nieces and nephews up here for Christmas, and they were never alone outside. Like, we will go outside and let them play, but we have to be outside with them because they are toddlers. Like, they are totally prey. So, and if you live in Newlands, you probably don't have that problem. Although Newlands is not far from this and is actually west of where that in-town mountain lion attack happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and depending on where you are in Newlands, you back to the open space right there.
Yeah, but I think it's so rare, and you adjust your lifestyle and your strategy to deal with it. You're fine, but it's not zero risk. There's no zero risk choices in life. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Heart goes out to the family, and
yeah,
and that brings us
go out to the family. Yes, condolences to the family of the person who died. That sucks. Okay, but let's talk about other due diligence items, and that's fire risk. And people forever have thought it's just a mountains issue. It's not, and December has become our new fire season when it's dry and windy. And we had fires in Broomfield, we had fires in Denver, and we had fires right here at Turkey Lane, like 2,000 feet from my house within the last 30 days. And all of that is very concerning, and everyone is now gambling with fire risk. So it's something that your agent should also be talking to you about. And if you're living in town, one of the most common pathways for that fire has been wooden fences. So juniper trees and wooden fences are going to be going out because of their risk of conducting that fire right to the structure. And Boulder is even paying you to remove junipers now. So I've got a rental property. We should probably just take them up on it.
Yeah, I think we might have more than one. The juniper is crazy flammable. I never realized. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
This Denver one, it was a partially complete apartment complex, and I've seen a few comments on social media saying like, "Oh, it's not the first partially complete construction project to catch on fire this year." So maybe there's a conspiracy. But
you think it's intentional? Is that what you're trying to say?
I don't know enough about it. Part of the reason I wanted to talk about this topic, though, is it is very cool to see the firefighters out there on the ladders, and like it reminds me of like a high-rise fire in like, you know, a big city.
Okay, so what are you saying? There's a bunch of boomer NIMBYs that are running around to these developments and setting them on fire because they don't want density?
To save the city. Yeah. No, I have no idea. I just saw that comment, and like, I mean, people say whatever on social media.
People are really, really dumb on social media, as everyone knows. Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about the 270 corridor improvements, Hamish.
Oh, cool.
News item. This is your topic.
I know we wrote this down. Okay, there are public hearings. There's one tomorrow. The one earlier is no.
Can you start with like, what is this corridor?
Yeah,
give me
high
like,
level.
The background. Yeah. Let's start at the high level and then get granular.
So there's Highway 270. It connects US 36 to I-70. It's like a pretty major artery if you're going to the airport from, I mean, anywhere on US 36. There's alternate routes, but it's go ahead.
It goes through Commerce City.
Yep. If you know the
Dick Stadium.
Yeah, if you know the refinery that passes right through there, it's Suncor, like the petroleum refinery. Anyhow, this highway has sucked. My entire life that I know it, it's been horrible. It's 2 lanes per direction, and CDOT, Colorado Department of Transportation, is holding some public hearings to get your input. Looks like, and this will be linked, there's one tomorrow, and then there's one January 13th. So, again, linked in the description, but I'm seeing, and this might be my hot take, a lot of comments saying add like a rail line or something, or like public transport to I-70 or 270. Not for this. The joke is like, just one more lane, bro, but genuinely 270 needs another lane. Like, US 36 is a 3-lane either direction, and I-70 is like a 4 or 5 either direction, and the only thing connecting that is a 2-lane. Like, it's been antiquated long enough. Like, we need more just general flow through there. There are a few
some, like, basic repairs that, like,
seriously,
that road is so broken and has this like launch ramp as you're going down 36 onto 270. Yeah. It's like the most insane highway speed.
Oh, it's such a bad bump. Yeah,
it's. Anybody that's driven this knows this bump. It probably needs a name of its own. At this point, if you call it the bump, people are going to know what we're talking about. It's a big bump.
And it's horrible. And so there's, you know, just 270, it has a bunch of on-ramps, and at every on-ramp there's always a slowdown. And because it's only a 2-lane, there's not much room for people to navigate around people merging into the highway. And so you create these bottlenecks. And granted, I'm generally in favor of public transport and things, but this highway as it is just too anemic for the demand on it. There's not enough flow there.
It's been that way forever. When I was commuting to the Denver Tech Center, I would drive it every day, and we would first put our car on recirc because the smells from the Suncor plant and from the waste transfer facility were so pungent that it would cause your eyes to water. And then traffic would inevitably slow down dramatically as you get on 270.
Right there, yeah.
And then Vasquez, and then also on Vasquez. Is it Vasquez? Yeah, Vasquez.
Yeah.
No, Valdez. No, Vasquez. I don't know.
One of the two.
This is the cold. In any event, it's like it's been horrible forever. It's also like it feels like an industrial wasteland. Plus, I feel really bad for the poor communities that live in this area. Like the residential housing in Commerce City, I feel like is textbook of charges of discrimination, where you see like you see people develop really cheap land and put people to live in these really polluted places, and those inevitably end up people of lower socioeconomic class and means, and so it's, in some ways it feels very discriminatory over time. And it's the last to get addressed from a flow perspective too. It's really, I mean, I'm glad to see that they're finally talking about it. I'm sure they're going to continue to deprioritize it because that's what they've done for a long time.
Yeah.
So we shall see, but I don't know if I agree with you on train. Rail is so expensive.
Oh, I don't want it for this. Like, you know, as a long term, 50 years from now, you know, and whole thing, like, if we were to, the whole interstate project, I think Eisenhower is doing, if we had something like that for rail, great. But unless it's something on that grand of a scale, I think it's worth it to update our infrastructure with what we're doing.
I mean, Fast Tracks was supposed to have us connected to Denver by 2019, and RTD lied, and we got the short end of it, and so it's just another pipe dream. And RTD's never been held to account for that. So I feel like...
Yeah, that's 7 years ago.
I've become jaded. I was very optimistic
Rightly
when I first heard rail was happening, and now I'm jaded. But rail is so much more pleasant than our fast bus service or whatever that we've got going on. Man, yeah. So anyway, yeah, we'll see what happens to 270. Is there anything else you wanted to riff on with that?
Suppose just before, you know, like, this public transport's awesome. It says here 8 to 17% of the daily traffic on 270 is freight. Like, it's not just a commuter rail. This isn't a rail, not just a commuter highway. It's a freight. It's industrial. It's a lifeline to the city. Like, improving this and getting flow going is good overall. So maybe, I don't know, a bus lane, no, but let's get some more lanes in general.
When we have people visiting us from out of town and they've never been to Colorado, we pay for the Northwest toll road, because taking them through 270 and seeing that industrial wasteland and Suncor, it just feels like
welcome
to Colorado. I know he's John Denver, man. Like, I know he fooled you. It looks like New Jersey, and it's just not what I mean. Industrial New Jersey. There's some lovely parts of New Jersey, but it looks like an industrial wasteland, or some sort of like post-apocalyptic thing. So we will take them around that just to not have them have that experience. And also, if we're running late to the airport, the consistency of the Northwest tollways is worth the expense. But if you drive it every day, it can get really expensive quickly.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I couldn't, unless they have, I don't know if they do, but unless they have like a monthly thing, it's just not worth it.
I don't think they do. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having that one on there. I love talking traffic, so yeah.
Well, let's talk about the next news item, and that's CU's pipeline for student housing. And this isn't really one article that drew this to my attention. I just feel like it isn't getting enough focus. It's something that's happening slowly, but it will continue to happen, and people really need to understand it. But CU is planning to build thousands of new residential units. And there's 2,000 new ones on campus. In Code Talker Hall, that's planning to open in fall of 2026, there's 300 plus beds. And then there's a new complex that's slated to be built at the corner of Colorado Ave and Regent Drive, beginning by 2028. That's another 1,650.
That's the one next to where the Millennium was?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
No, that's not next. The Millennium is further north.
Right.
This is like a quarter mile to the south of that, or an eighth of a mile to the south of that. So Colorado Avenue and Regent Drive, it's currently a parking lot. There's another 1,650 students that are planning to be put there. And then CU South, we did the math on CU South. So the agreement with the city says that they're allowed to develop up to 750,000 square feet for non-housing related use. And then when they build use, it must be on a 2-to-1 ratio for housing, which equates to 1.5 million square feet for housing. And
then we worked that out to like 3,000 units?
We ballparked and said, okay, you could probably build 500 square foot 2-bedroom units. And on the basis of that 1.5 million square feet that's allocated for housing, that's 3,000 potential more units. So 6,000 more beds there. So the total number of beds, like you're talking about 6 plus about 2, so 8,000 new beds coming in the next 5 to 7 years. And when you think about CU as a whole, it's like 30. I don't. What's the CU? You want to use AI and tell me what CU's student populace is? I want to say it's like 30,000, but I'm not entirely sure.
Fall 2024 was 38,400. Oh, okay. Here's 2025. 38,808.
So let's call it 38,800. All right, and then you were talking about 8,000 new beds. As a percentage of that, you're looking at a 20% increase. 20%. Oh, wait a minute. That's not right. Hold on. Let me do the math right. Equals 8,000 plus.
Cold brain.
This. Yeah. No. That's 21% more. That was right.
Oh.
What's wrong with my brain? It's 20.6%. So that's a 20% increase in the size of the CU student population within the next, I would call it 8 years, maybe at most 10. That's a pretty substantial increase in the number of people living in Boulder. And what occurred to me is that no one talks about what the impact of all those additional students will be on our housing market. And I think where there's likely to be impact is also the segment of the market that's most constrained, and that's the entry level. Not everyone wants to live on campus, and the most basic entry level housing, students are less fussy, and they really care about low rent and proximity to campus. Those are the two things that really matter. And so I think what will result is there'll be, in some ways, there'll be less. You could argue there should be less demand for existing student housing. I did mention this to a friend of mine who owns a bunch of student housing. I'm like, they're building, 6,000-8,000 new beds in the next 10 years. Are you worried? And his answer was that the percentage of people that want to come to CU is always much higher than the number of available spots at CU. So he's not worried. I think that's a good argument.
Yeah.
And depending on the speed in which they build relative to the conditions of the economy and whether the education bubble continues to persist in the face of AI, you could argue it's going to disappear. And if it does, then all of this student housing becomes oversupply. So rents should drop, which could free up the entry level. So there's two arguments here of what might happen, and nobody has a crystal ball. But I like his argument that the demand to live and attend school here in Boulder, we're known globally as an amazing place to be. So he's completely not worried about it.
Yeah,
I like that argument.
I was short-sighted. I was like, what? I didn't even think that the population of CU students could increase. So I immediately took it to be like, there's increased housing supply and it'll change things. But
no. I think if they're going to build 8,000 new beds, they're going to build more classrooms. They're going to
8,000 more enrolled. Yeah.
They're going to make the university 8,000 more people.
Yeah.
And as long as demand outstrips supply, we're fine. I just think there is a significant risk overhang of AI affecting. Look, you're spending $50,000 a year to send your kid to CU from out of state or more, and the kid won't have a job when he graduates. Like, the math don't add up.
I was going to say too. No, it's gone. Oh.
Well, I will say, as a developer, it's a gold mine. As a long-term owner, I would be very hesitant to advise you to invest in student rentals right now. Investing in things that could become duplexes or ADUs, I think there's an upside there. But the student rental game, I would not be encouraging my clients to jump in, given what CU's big plan is.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think CU requires the first 2 years, or maybe just the first year, is on-campus housing.
On campus, yeah.
And I mean, 90% of the people that I know that went to CU intentionally did not stay on campus for the remaining years. So I could see, it's just... It's a great point. There's a reason we don't do predictions.
CU student housing is like, it's like a jail with rules, right? Residence halls have rules and an RA, and renting a house from a private landlord, all they care is that you don't trash the place, annoy the neighbors, and you pay your rent on time, right? Like, take care of the place, you pay your rent on time, and don't annoy the neighbors, and you're going to be fine. So far less restrictive, and people do like to live together. So it's sort of like a minor step into adulthood. I will add one piece, and that is, if your kid is already going to CU, right? And they've completed the first year and have not flunked out. And you're thinking about paying a slumlord for years 2 through 4, you may want to consider buying because the entry level is so solid and you could teach them a few things about economics. You're probably going to do much better owning it and then selling it at the end of junior's college experience. I mean, they may even stay through grad school. If you can afford to do that, if you have the financial capability, we have represented many buyers who have done exactly that. And it's a very smart move.
Yeah.
And you're still ahead of the curve of these 8,000 new beds coming. It's just going to take a while for these beds to show up.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, I could keep talking on the topic, but I think interest of time.
Yeah.
Did we, because that's it on our notes, but did we cover the Trump thing too much? Because I still have questions.
Okay, what's your question? So the basics, okay, so let me explain one thing before we get started, okay? Trump ordering Fannie and Freddie to buy $200 billion in CMOs, collateralized mortgage obligations. The reason that drops rates is because the price of bonds moves inversely to the interest rate, or the interest rate moves inversely to the price. When there's more demand, the price does what? It goes up. So that does what? It drops the rate. Mm-hmm. So creating demand for CMOs will drop rates. I mean, I don't like Trump for a lot of reasons, but that actually seems like an effective strategy.
Yeah. And
so what was your question about it?
I'm on the Times of India. According to the president, companies hold $200 billion in cash that can be used for the purchases. So it sounds like Fannie and Freddie have the money just ready to go.
Fannie and Freddie are very weird government-sponsored entities that underlie a core part of our economy. No other country, I believe, in the world has what we do with 30-year fixed-rate mortgages as low as we have them. And this government-sponsored, it's Fannie, Freddie, also Sallie Mae, which is the student version of that.
That's right.
And they package these mortgages together as securities, which removes individual default risk and foreclosure risk or refinance risk.
In theory.
And then they sell that thing as an investment to institutional investors primarily. But if Fannie and Freddie are sitting on, what's funny is they're also they're the packager of these CMOs as well as the investor. Sure, okay.
¿Por qué no? Why not?
Well, I mean, so we've talked about the mechanics of that, but the net effect should be lower rates. And that benefits our industry. So I'm not going to say no to that. I'd like to see our housing market buoyed. And we've had a couple of years of down and sideways market conditions. So great. Bring it on.
I'd say it's a workaround to Powell and, waiting for the Fed to cut rates. Trump's like, I'm moving on. I'm going to try other strategies. So
I just had this flash. There's like a David Chappelle skit where he's like, got like white powder all over his face and he's looking for more of it. I feel like okay, that's sort of where we stand with regard to this decision. Like, sure, absolutely, drive rates lower. It's going to have more activity in the market. And buyers and sellers should plan accordingly. Like, we just talked to a potential seller the other day and they're thinking about selling a family home this year. And my advice to them is, why? Wait a year, because like all of the stimulus that's coming in 2026, and now like a particular stimulus for housing means that housing in 2027 could be way stronger than 2026, or wait till the end of 2026. It could be a very active year. So I don't see that unless you have to sell. I would not be rushing to sell in the first quarter. I'd be waiting to see what happens in the first quarter.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. There's a lot of moving parts currently, just globally even. And it's, yeah. But thank you. That pretty much cleared up a lot of my questions and was good, I think, that we just covered it too. So, you went international.
You want to talk about carve-outs? Well, since we're into forecasting...
Yeah, do you have
let me see if I have something that's more fun for you. Okay. Hang on a second. Maybe this is it. Let me see. Okay, so I asked AI to be my astrologist, and give me a horoscope based on my date of birth and time
Is this your
of
Carveout?
birth. Hold on, I'm getting
Okay.
there. Hold on. And I wanted to analyze my date and time of birth using psychology, numerology, life pattern mapping, and look into Vedic as well as Chinese, perspectives on the year. And we're coming into the year of the fire horse, and boy, it had some very, very interesting things to say about all the changes that are expected to happen both to individuals and to the world in 2026. So I'm going to leave it at that, with just as a reflection of your comment about all the moving parts. Like,
Oh yeah.
something about this year being the end of a 9-year cycle, and it's like on and on about how this year is going to have all sorts of crazy change. We're only into the second week of January, and we've already decapitated Venezuela. Iran's in crazy protests. Our country's like at odds with each other in the most divisive way I've ever seen. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, Hamish. And who knows?
The last time it was.
That's why predictions are so useless, right? Like, why it's so amusing to see my real estate colleagues make predictions.
So I'm not a fan of prediction markets in general.
Prediction
but
markets, like Poly
yeah.
Market.
Yeah. Poly Market has an inverse Kramer. So
what's
just,
that?
inverse to Kramer index, whatever Kramer tells you to do. Inverse Kramer just beat Pelosi. So
Wow.
anyhow, the last time it was a fire horse was in 1966, which is when the Cultural Revolution began in China. The Freedom of Information Act was signed into law. The ATM was introduced. Soft landing on the moon. Vietnam escalated. Star Trek. There's a few others in there, but pronunciation, and I don't really understand them. So
Poly Market also gives Khomeini out as supreme leader of Iran a 20% chance, and Trump buying Greenland a 17% chance. So interesting. We'll see how this plays out. It's going to be a very, very interesting year. All right, so my Carveout is not about my astrology by AI, my horoscope by AI. I did just come back from London and Dublin. My wife and I took a trip between Christmas and New Year's, and it was an amazing trip. Also, she had the week off, right? And we don't have kids, so we could afford to do this. And it was really a lot of fun. It was a very fast-paced trip. Also brought some I've never spent time in Dublin. Well, I've spent time in Dublin, but not in London. I've only transited through London. And it was super interesting to see the Tower of London and the British Museum and all the remnants of colonialism and imperialism in these countries. It's kind of a mixed feeling. Also, we felt completely safe everywhere we went in London. We saw very little trash, very little safety. I mean, it looked great. I don't know what all the social media hype is on London, like falling apart. Where we went felt amazing. And Dublin, too, we saw friends I have not seen in 20 plus years got together with their kids. These kids did not exist 20 years ago.
Wow.
We went out to the pub and had a great time connecting and having good conversation. And it felt like within minutes, just like I felt like I last saw them 2 weeks ago, right? And it's been over 20 years. Like when people vibe together and they realize they vibe together, it's almost like time didn't matter. You just reconnect so warmly and in such a lovely way. So overall, the trip was fantastic. And hopefully I'll do a little personal video about it. I'm still kind of thinking about what should I be saying? And I've been thinking a lot about Werner Herzog, and his like existentialism and nihilism and kind of dark perspective. But I don't think I want to go there with that. I'd rather just have a nice little fun vacation video. But I did think about it as an intro, thinking about colonialism and kind of the sadness and the history of that, particularly to people that hail ethnically from the subcontinent. Sounds like you had a door closed, Hamish.
I dropped something on the desk. That's my bad. That's almost an exact month since Mexico, and we were just there at the castle in Mexico City and looking at kind of all of that. So I mean the parallels had to be interesting. when we were at the castle, I was like, I'll check Facebook and see what's on there. And I got a reel that's like, if you're staying at this neighborhood in Mexico City, look out, corrupt cops and crime. And I was like, that's where we're staying, and we're totally fine. So there's something about social media like drawing things up lately. Shocker.
I mean, don't believe what you read and see on social media. Half of it seems to be fake now anyway. But not this podcast. We are not fake. We are.
Hey, yeah. Bonafide.
We are legit.
Yeah. Was it me?
I think it's you. I mean, I could talk more about videography, but my throat's starting to hurt. I think we should wrap it up.
I got you. For the listeners, I am holding a faux leather or square pouch.
Show and tell. I like it.
And I'm opening a magnet latched flap. And there's a piece of ribbon, and if I pull on the ribbon, it ejects a little lens or filter. So Osmond and I both very much enjoy film and videography, and kind of I think we like the technical aspect of it, and then also kind of the way that it makes us feel, and that you can invoke emotion and things out of film, and techniques to do so. So we've caught wind of this filter that's kind of been in the murmurs of creators, but not so talked about, and it's the black mist filter. I think there's like an actual company that makes like the black mist trademark. However, I'm on K&F Concept is the brand that sold me this, and there's different strengths, but both Osmond and I picked up almost, I think, independently of each other, but around the same week time frame, black mist filter. And I went to Christmas dinner with it, shot some video. It's very pretty. It's a lot of fun, and it adds, I think the effect of it from what I see is it'll kind of like bloom the highlights. So instead of, kind of like the brightness of a light and then whatever it reflects, it creates this almost kind of haze over where the brightness of the light and that source is. And then in the shadows as well, it kind of adds a little bit of a haze at the same time. For the most part, like detail is preserved as well, and I'm going to share two Oz.
Ooh.
Took a picture of Mr. Balls.
Show a picture. Oh, Mr. Balls with and without the black mist filter.
Some ball pics. This is just Mr. Balls with the black mist, and this is the one that I showed you just then on the show and tell is a VND, so it controls darkness and it has the black mist to it. This is just a black mist, and so it's only
VND
a photo.
is variable neutral density filter.
Yeah, and so if you look around like his ears and things, you can see that haze that I'm talking about. Same with around his collar and through here. It's a very gentle kind of bloom. It almost looks like noise, but then you still see his hair and his detail, and of course he's the best. So yeah, having a lot.
He's the employee of the month, Hamish.
Every year, every month. That biscuit factory wouldn't be the same without him.
Leah got quite the laugh out of seeing the employee of the month for Mr. Balls. Yeah, she thought we should have them up in our office. We should have each of the pets. Everyone's pet needs an employee of the month on our wall in the office. Well, I do think black mist filters are cool, and it's not just in daylight photos. It's at nighttime or dark photos with light sources. They create really lovely imagery, but it also sometimes looks like somebody forgot to clean their iPhone lens, right? Like it's got a smear on it. Like, you could probably get the same effect just by like wiping your nose onto the lens and have a little smear or something from your lunch tray smeared on your iPhone lens.
You've just been, you took a call, so your front-facing camera on your phone's a little greasy, and it's like, oh wow, I've got black mist,
Like, there you go.
So it's
there's also a white mist filter. I don't know if you knew that. There's a whole nother filter, but it's not as useful or versatile as the black mist filter. And then there's some gold mist filters that I've been playing with too that really give you that retro look. But mostly when I see it, it's too much. So.
There's Prism Lens, Prism FX. Check them out. They've got a bunch of filters, things that you wouldn't use aside from just to play with, or however it goes. And maybe we use these black mists for real estate. It'd be fun to play with, but depending on what they do to details and kind of the general mood of the shot, maybe not. But we're not.
Well, think about
generative AIing a whole room.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Think about I think it's important to think about the vibe you want in the photos.
Yeah.
Or the video.
I think so. But yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It does feel a little sell-outy. I think when like Instagram first came out, the main criticism was everybody would just slap like the worst filters on the image before they posted it. And here we are, decades later, like, oh, check out my black mist filter that I'm putting on my very expensive video camera, you know? Like,
I paid all this money for super sharp lenses, and now here I am softening it and paying more money to make it softer. I hear you, Hamish. I hear you.
Yeah.
All right, folks, you have squandered another perfectly good hour or so of your valuable time listening to this beautiful podcast called the House Einstein Podcast. We deeply appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you're in the market to buy or sell, please visit the House Einstein Brokerage, the sponsor of this podcast. We're more than happy to serve you where you are and with ethics and integrity to help you make a smarter real estate decision. You could check us out on social media. You'll find us on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and X and Blue Sky. Of course, visit houseeinstein.com. You can sign up for our newsletter, which is now back to a much more regular publishing schedule. And in fact, it's on my list to get one of those done in the next couple of days. The cold has delayed me, but it's happening. So stay tuned for that. And anything else to add, Hamish?
I think that's it. For just a fun bit of trivia, because we've made it to the end, today is the day that we were recording, and hopefully the day that we publish too. So
same day. That would be impressive.
Same day. Possible.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll catch you next time, everybody.